Hi, I'm Fiona, and this is a video where I go through the process of how I create a character. The first thing that I always do is create a mood board, which is a collection of images that I've already created and things that I found on the internet. Quite often I go onto fashion shops and look for items that are interesting, which can bring something slightly different into a fantasy or science fiction design rather than just sticking to historical or traditional fantasy styles. Here I've got a few sort of items like a contemporary jacket, which reminded me of an Edwardian lady. So I went looking then for Edwardian imagery to bring into the design. There's also a couple of images that are just based on the color that I liked and things that I can bring into the design. Um, I'm a very rough sketcher. I don't really finish anything until I get to the colouring and end design bit, because really no one else has to work on it but me. So as long as I get the rough anatomy in the right place and the design down, I don't really mind what's really happening. Um, for me, the most important thing about a character design or a costume design is an iconic shape. Here, I really love this big open collar in the jacket, which is what I built that entire design round. What I'm keeping in mind is that in my head she is a scientist. So I went looking for jackets because of a I've forgotten what you call them because I'm that kind of person. Um, a lab coat kind of thing, but I didn't want to go for a traditional lab coat, so hence looking for other things. Uh, this is the point that I find most fun, is when I start to actually build up the character. The first thing I do is I just throw down colours, because I'm not much of a line art person, and any line art that you do see on my work has been drawn over the top of the colours. So the first thing I do is build up the colour balance, so I get the darks and the mid-tones and the lights, and get the composition right to keep it interesting. Um, there's no real rules to composition or colour choices. Here, because it's part of a series of characters that I've already done, I was lifting colours from two different images that I'd already created, which had a range of this greyish purple colours. As you can see, I keep bringing that back up to steal the colours. I did go for a more traditional mad scientist kind of hairstyle with the wild colours, but I brought in this kind of yellow and this teal that I'd found that was slightly different from others in the series, where I'd used red and where I'd used a much stronger teal presence. I'm bringing in some of the mechanics and things that I've used in other imagery, keeping the style the same as it is part of a series. This is the bit where I now start doing my favourite, which is adding in all the details. And it is a very sketchy way of doing things that I do. I just bringing in some of the yellows from the sort of goggles and the purples that I'd based the entire colour scheme around. Some of the teal. Colour is a lot of fun. There's no rule that says it must be one colour or another. Skin is not skin coloured. It is, depending on the levels of melanin, of how dark the skin tone is, it reflects from other colours that's around mixed with the colour. Here she's fairly dark, but she will still pick up reflected off the yellows, off the teals, off the purples. So I love drawing skin. It's my favourite. Bringing in some bright yellow to the hair, because why not? She's a science fiction character. I suppose it's fairly self-explanatory what's going on. I stick to solid colours. I don't paint on my work. I just use flat colours, hard edged pen. I do use a tablet. It's a Wacom. It's a very old tablet. I've had it about 10 years, but it serves me well. The program I'm using actually is Gimp, because it is free and it is a fantastic program. I started using it because it was better than the version of Photoshop that I owned. And I'm sure Photoshop now has progressed on, but I'm so comfortable using this program. I know all its ins and outs, and use whatever program you need to use. There are people that say that you must use Adobe or you must use Sci or whatever. Just use what makes you happy. I work professionally and I work professionally in Gimp, so there's nothing that says you have to use a certain program. Perhaps if you are working in a studio, but as I freelance, I can get away with using whatever I like. I mean, here's the point where I'm starting to bring in the mechanics. I like to start with the shape of the design. I don't really build in too much in the drawing, so I use a flat shape and then I start to build in panels and angles and the articulated parts that could be there. I'm not an engineer, I'm not building this. As long as it looks like it could physically work, it doesn't really matter whether it does. I don't get too caught up in those details. It is a science fiction drawing, not an engineering diagram, so I can have as much fun as I like. As you see, I keep stealing the colours off a previous drawing I did that had mechanical limbs, so bringing it back into the series. I had a colour scheme that already worked, so why invent a new one when these characters are meant to sit beside one another? Just adding in some sort of final details. I build this over the top. Just a few character things, lab keys, USB sticks, the kind of things I think a scientist might carry on their person. I mean, they are science fiction, so you don't have to be, too specific, but, adding in a few things that tell you visually that this is a scientist makes it a more interesting design than having to write a whole blurb underneath telling somebody what this person is. And that's it, pretty much done. If you've got any further questions that I didn't answer in this video, please feel free to leave a comment. I will try and get an answer to you. And I will put links into the description box to the finished image, which will be on Tumblr and DeviantArt. And if you want to see more from me, please hit subscribe.